In the beginning, the noise came from behind the mission. It sounded like a cat. I've imagined it countless times. At about 11:30, the night watchman pulled his car around the back of St. Joseph's Mission, one of the Indian residential schools in British Columbia, Canada, where my family was sent to unlearn our Indian ways. The 4-story building was all white and right angles, unadorned save for a big cross looming over the entrance and a blue-green trim that, from a distance, made the campus look like a hunk of moldy cheese plopped in the middle of the valley. In my mind's eye, his carburetor is coughing, the crickets are singing, and there's that tiny, eerie cry. When he killed the engine and stepped out from behind his insect-speckled windshield, the night watchman could hear it too. It was coming from the service wing, a single-story brick annex at the back of the mission. The baby's scream climbed the lone smokestack looming out of the annex and crawled across school grounds. It was primal, the sound of birth meeting death. The night watchman flicked on his flashlight. Its beam reflected off his brow-lined eyeglasses. Antonius Cornelius Stoop went by Tony. He wore his brown hair and one of those short-cropped everyman cuts, and he was an everyman. A Dutchman who spoke broken English, Tony immigrated to Canada from the old country. At night, he walked the grounds of St. Joseph's, a ring of keys jingling on his hip and a flashlight in his hand. It was his job to make sure the Indian kids weren't up to any Indian mischief, like stealing food or running away. He also kept an eye on the mission's prized and profitable herd of Herefords. Undoubtedly, he saw and heard things in his many nights at St. Joseph's, where he worked for more than 30 years until the school was shuttered in 1981. But he said little and kept to himself. Oh, hello there. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another fine day here at Sisseton Wahpeton College. An old man Singingeagle's got to get this show on the road and get this big rig rolling down the highway. Announcements says that Professor Fisher over there in the Song to the Creator building, otherwise known as the Votech, she still has all kinds of awesome opportunities available for students who want to get into herbology. Sounds like Harry Potter and Professor Sprout, but never mind. Stay focused. Bad teacher. Yes, go see Professor Fisher. She's waiting for you. There's all kinds of money, all kinds of opportunities available for you. Uh, Again, the last warning. I am missing 2 students who have not submitted their syllabus agreement, their info sheets. If you don't give it to me by 5 today, you get dropped. Got it. All right. More. Right. It says here, I put on here, it says Native literature versus Native American literature. I probably said this before, but it does bear repeating. That is, we are considering the fact that Native, we don't want to just deal with Native America, the USA. We want to deal with the Americas, all of Turtle Island, and I guess we can say the southern Turtle Island of South America. We're talking aboriginals from all the way from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego, all 5,719 tribes, and Hawaii as well. And if I have time, I might include some of the other island peoples as well. But just a reminder, that's why I keep calling the class Native Literature as opposed to Native American Literature or Amerigo Vespucci. What else? Pop Quiz A is coming soon, so keep your eyeballs peeled. I'm going to run you through some of our important key terms of this class in a second. 329 days till Christmas. Now, in a subsequent video that's connected to this, something that I actually recorded earlier, probably last semester or semester before last, that I don't have to re-record. It runs you through Daniel Heath Justice's book, which is called Indian Literatures Matter, or Why Indian Literatures Matter. The Importance of Stories, which is page 33, talks about metaphors not being enough. Louise Erdrich on page 36, Cherokee Origins of Disease on page 39. Importance of Stories again, talking about Leslie Silko, that's on page 2. On page 57, there's all this really cool stuff. By the way, I might be mixing that up because I've got a Leslie Marmon Silko book behind me. Right here. That's probably page 2. But in her book Ceremony, Leslie Marmon Silko does talk about the importance of stories and why we natives heavily rely on them. But there's also a page 57 in the book that talks about dangerous stories. Matter of fact, there's a myth that Silko mentions in this book where some evil witches or whatever, they're getting together and they're cackling and telling stories, and one of the witches, they're having a contest to see who can tell the scariest story. And I won't give away the ending, but one of the witches wins by telling the worst possible story, and we're living through it today. Again, I'm salting your oats. Now, the power of healing is in there as well. Now, we're going to jump straight to the review of important terms. Let me get rid of these add drop sheets just to scare you to turn in. By the way, I think there's one student, maybe two, who also have not logged on to e-learning. And that's more, I guess I could say, ammunition. I hate to use that term. It sounds like I'm chomping at the bit to get you guys out of my class. That's not true. I'm worried about you. Because if I don't drop you, you're going to end up with a big old goose egg and a big old F on your transcript, and that's not good. So, yeah. Maybe you enrolled in my class by mistake and you have no intention of logging on, and you totally forgot that you enrolled in my class. So, yeah, I got to get you out of there so you don't get screwed up on your transcripts. All right, now, important terms. I probably already made a video, one of my subsequent videos or connected videos to this one discusses these. However, it's important sometimes, as we say in the military, to drill stuff. All right, let's go. The first term that I need you guys to remember is indigenous didactics. Indigenous didactics, which is defined as stories that teach children and community members about proper behavior, ethics, social norms. Sometimes they're called cautionary tales. For example, the story from Professor Simpson, who's Kuz Yakima. He tells a story about soft heads, and a story about how human beings a long time ago used to have soft heads, but for some reason the heads turned into these rock solid things, and Along with getting soft heads, we became hard headed in other ways. So keep your eyes peeled for my soft headed video. Next, another term, etiology. Etiology. Look at your lesson plan and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to upload it today. Etiology is the attribution of the cause or reason for something, often expressed in mythical oral traditions. It says why things are the way they are today. For example, why a possum has no hair on his tail, or why is hummingbird so colorful while raven is black. Hmm. We have a lot of etiological tales in native tradition, do we not? Yes, we do. Now, let me see some other important key terms. I got to go through this faster because I'm already gone for 19 minutes. I'll probably have to cut this video down for all my yakety yakking. Another term that we looked at, which is important for us, is aesthetics. Which reminds me, go back to e-learning and look at a discussion that I posted about a poem posted by some anonymous native writer called the Esoterica. Have a look at it. It might be extra credit, but read it anyway. Even if it is extra credit, I might ask you a question about it on a quiz, okay? Okay, now, aesthetics is a set of principles concerned with the nature and appreciation of beauty, especially in art or literature. It involves analyzing how elements like imagery, symbolism, and word choice create meaning and evoke feelings, and it explores the subjective experience of what makes a text beautiful or profound. Okay? Okay, now that's aesthetics. Pretty much the study of what makes things beautiful. That's the best way to say it. Or the philosophical study of what makes, why we find things beautiful. Next one, pedagogical resistance. This is related to the earlier native authors. I probably mentioned it before, but it does bear repeating again. That is, these earlier writers, native writers, they were very polite in their writing, and they used highfalutin, polite language when they're telling their stories. A lot of them were autobiographical, and there was a whole lot of pedagogical resistance in it because these guys were teachers. And one I'm thinking of especially is it Kalasha. So would define pedagogical resistance as a teaching approach where educators actively challenge dominant ideologies and power structures within the classroom by encouraging critical thinking, questioning the status quo, and empowering students to engage with social issues, often with the goal of promoting social justice, equality, and upsetting stereotypes, especially about people. Next, related to pedagogical resistance is a term coined by my buddy Gerald Visner, I should say Professor Gerald Visner. He uses the term manifest manners. These two are connected, pedagogical resistance and manifest manners. However, what's the difference? Well, again, this is a term coined by Gerald Visner, who's Anishinaabe. It is related to pedagogical resistance in that it is meant to resist the stereotypes and rigid images imposed on Native peoples by colonial culture. However, unlike pedagogical resistance, Visner uses more sarcasm, highlighting how native identity gets reduced to simulations, denying real presence and agency, and are modern extensions of what the Chimokmanuk or Washichu call manifest destiny. So manifest manners versus manifest destiny. We're subverting the dominant paradigm. All right, next one, indigenous deficiency. Now, here's something that hits close to our hearts, especially mine too. Indigenous deficiency is disempowering patterns of thought, language, and practice that represent native peoples in terms of failure. It's a discourse that replaces responsibility for problems with affected communities while overlooking the larger socioeconomic structures in which they are embedded. Another way of looking at it is blaming the victims of society, especially natives. We are looked at in terms of our failure. Oh, there's a drunk Indian. We always hear that stereotype. Let's go to the next one, which is related to indigenous deficiency. This comes from our old buddy Du Huawei. I gave him a Chinese name, Du Huawei. Dumars. Professor Harvey Dumars says the term intergenerational trauma. Again, intergenerational trauma. That is, the transmission of traumatic experiences from one generation to subsequent generations, resulting in lasting psychological, physiological, and social effects. So you often wonder why there's this endless train of F ups in native families and native cultures. And Professor Du Huawei will say, well, that's because of intergenerational trauma. So a lot of times you'll see my grandfather, he drank himself to death, and his or my father drank himself to death, and I'll probably end up drinking myself to death. It's that link that goes on and on. We want to break that link. So one way that a lot of times in literature, characters break intergenerational trauma in various ways. Some natives um, escape from the reservation and go off somewhere, move to the big city, and make names for themselves. And oftentimes they will deny their Indianness. Or some natives will pass for other races to escape that intergenerational trauma or hide their Indianness. Some natives will become movie stars and make a whole lot of money and whatever, become big business moguls, whatever it is, um, to escape intergenerational trauma. Next one. This is a term coined by Adrian Lewis, who is Paiute. Cultural illiteracy. Cultural illiteracy. Well, what is it? It is a lack of knowledge or understanding. I'm going to add this point. Well, let me read it straight through first, and then I'm going to add my point. Cultural illiteracy is a lack of understanding or knowledge of other cultures, including history, politics, values, and social norms. Again, a lack of knowledge or understanding of other cultures, including history, politics, values, and social norms. Now, here's where Singingeagle adds his own 2 points in here. I added whether willful or unwillful, because as we all know, some people are willfully ignorant, are they not? And they're militantly ignorant. If you have not met some who are militantly ignorant, you will someday. Uh-huh. All right. So, lack of knowledge or understanding, whether willful or unwillful, of other cultures, including history, politics, values, and social norms. Bigly, I can think of somebody. Never mind. Stop. Focus. The last term. This is a term that I, Professor Singingeagle, am adopting for our literature class. We call it comparative misfortune. It is the act of judging the poor circumstances of others against one's own, usually to one up another's misfortune, to exclude that person from a perceived group. We Indians are really good at that. Well, I'm more Indian than thou because my house is more beat up than yours. I live in a trailer and you live in a house, so I'm more Indian than you. Um, well, yeah, well, we lived on commodity cheese and fry bread, so we're more Indian than you. You guys got to eat meat, whatever. That's comparative misfortune. And I'm already messing up my voice, and we're at 29 minutes and 34 seconds. So I'm going to stop the video there and connect you to subsequent videos, which till we go through more of what I already previewed. So thank you so much for your kind attention, and you guys have an awesome rest of the day. Talk to you later. Bye bye.